Hello everybody! As promised, this is my final video of 2011, and I hope you all enjoyed. I think it's going to be a long one. I'm not sure how long it's going to be, but I committed myself to it, so I might as well just knock this bad boy out of the way. But by the time it's done, I wouldn't be surprised if it were the longest video I've ever filmed, but we'll find out in the editing process. But yeah, I'm back, and I am going to get into my best ofs and worst ofs of 2011. Nothing major. I think it's just 6 categories for each. I guess I could have gone more in depth with it, but I just decided to keep it simple, and I will try to explain my decisions as best I can. But before I do that, I do want to talk about basically the recent developments in the two products, WWE and TNA. TNA had a lot of TV tapings this week, and WWE had their big Slammies episode on Raw, and some significant stuff happened. So I thought I'd go ahead and sum up my feelings on that. Starting with the WWE. I thought the Slammy show was mostly bad. Like, just really a lot of filler. That's what it felt like. Just a lot of filler, and that's not good for a 3-hour show where it's just so much nothing going on. I mean, some of the cameos were okay, but again, they didn't add anything. It was just like, okay, Road Dogg came out, did his shtick, but that was it. I mean, nothing really came of it. It was just like, oh, hey, I remember him from 15 years ago. That's all it amounted to. There was nothing more than that. It wasn't like, Mark Henry came out and, bit his head off or something, or something crazy like that. So there was a lot of that. A lot of pointless, like the 4-way match was good, and this goes into my whole discussion about how wins and losses are secondary, and how, nothing really means anything anymore. They create this 4-way match just to decide who wins a Slammy Award, and to win the Slammy Award, you have to trend on Twitter. Of all the things wrestlers should be fighting over, that's definitely something very prestigious. And the guy that won the match didn't win the Slammy, so even though what they were fighting over was stupid, but the win had no bearing on the outcome at all anyway, so the whole match was just pointless. A good match, it's 4 talented guys. But those are the kind of problems that I see in wrestling, not just WWE. I see it a lot of places. I see that far too often. Wins and losses need to matter, and they need to fight over something important, and not just like inane bullcrap like a Slammy. Back in the day, they didn't interrupt Raw to do the Slammies. They did it in '96 and '97, and it was just a TV special. It didn't didn't take over your lead show, but. Whatever. So yeah, I just felt like the show was just loaded with a lot of filler, and not a whole lot really stood out to me until obviously the end, which I'm sure, a lot of people talked about it, so I'll throw in my 2 cents as well. Mask Kane came back. Kane came back in the mask and everything, and I gotta be honest, I was on the phone with a friend while that was going on. We were just, it was Mark Henry versus John Cena, so I just didn't give a shit, so I just was talking to a friend on the phone. And then all of a sudden, and he wasn't even watching the show. He was just like, yeah, whatever. We were just shooting the shit. I was half paying attention. And then all of a sudden, the pyro goes off and the video package and everything, and it's Kane. I'm like, oh my god, dude, Kane's back. And he immediately flipped on the TV and said, all right, let's see what he looks like in the mask. And when we saw that shitty Predator mask he had on, we died laughing. It was... if I had to compare it to something, it was like in The Nutty Professor when Eddie Murphy, Buddy Love, is jaw-jacking with Dave Chappelle. And Chappelle takes his hat off, and he's got that really screwed up hairdo, and Eddie just starts laughing at him and mocking him. He's like, come on, man, that ain't your hair. Come on, man. Take that shit off, man. You're going too far with the comedy. And that's kind of how I was reacting with Kane. It's like, come on, okay, where's the real Kane? That's not, please, dear God, tell me that's not the mask. Because that's the dumbest looking thing I've ever seen. It looked like shitty Predator. And I was mocking it, and then he took that mask off, and he was back in the more traditional Kane mask, and that looked a lot better. I'll give them that. That did look much better. It's like, all right, you kind of... my friend even marked out a little bit when he saw the real mask, so that was good. They at least saved that from being completely stupid. And now, I'm not sure how this is going to turn out. I have my doubts that Kane is worth revitalizing at this point, because, I mean, they have tried countless times to revitalize him. They took the mask off of him in an attempt to revitalize him, and nothing has worked. They put the title on him last year. That sucked. Some of the worst main event programs I've ever seen came out of that title reign. And, Kane, last time I saw him, he was out of shape. He was very slow, very formulaic in his matches. He was just one of those guys that was just having the same match every week. And I was just very bored with him. I just didn't care anymore about the Big Red Machine. And I find it really funny that the internet, I think I mentioned this on a previous video, I find it really funny that the internet was just screaming for the mask to go back on, when back in 2003 they were screaming for the mask to come off, and I said back then that was a mistake. They shouldn't have taken the mask off. But, I think if Kane's going to be back in the mask, I think that's probably the best thing they can do with him at this point. Nothing else he's done has generated this much attention, except for maybe Katie Vick, which that wasn't good attention, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, he's back in the mask, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see how he turns out. I think it's very interesting how WrestleMania 28 is going to shape up. It's going to have a very Attitude Era type of setup to it, or Attitude Era versus New Era, because I think, okay, we're going to get Cena and Rock. That's already confirmed. I think the It Begins previews are for Jericho. It's either Jericho or Taker. I'm leaning more towards Jericho. And if he comes back, I think he's going to feud with CM Punk. I think because they've been having like a Twitter war for the last few months, and I think maybe that's just them working the internet. But we'll see. So, all right, we could get Punk and Jericho. We're going to get Undertaker and Triple H again, which, it's kind of cute. Triple H thinks he's Shawn Michaels. I'm not trying to rag on Triple H, and they did have a really good match this year. It's just, you're only going to have Undertaker once a year by all appearances. It seems like that's all you're going to get out of him. So, I would think you would try and do something a little bit more special with him than just have him wrestle Triple H again. So there's that. Booker T might play a role. We might get Goldust versus Cody. That's been heavily rumored. Mask Kane is probably going to play a role. Although I will say, if it's Kane versus Undertaker again, I'm going to ram my head to that fucking wall. Mask or no mask, I have no desire to see Kane versus Undertaker ever fucking again. Okay. You've literally done everything you can possibly do by mixing those two characters together, and I just have absolutely no desire to see any more of it. You want to talk about something that's been played out, that's been played out. And it's funny because at WrestleMania 14, that was the match I was most excited for, and I was like, yeah, that's going to be fucking awesome. Now here we are, 14 years later, I'm sitting here like just dreading the idea that they're going to do it again. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how WrestleMania shapes up. It does look like they're going to get a lot of old Attitude Era personalities to be a part of it. Maybe Austin will do something. I don't know. Whether or not that's a good thing, I'll leave up to you for now. I'll decide once WrestleMania starts taking shape, and I'll comment on it when we get there. So there's that. That's pretty much it with the WWE. I know TLC. I'm filming this right after I just watched the Cowboys whip up on the Bucks. So Saturday night. I don't know when this is going to get up, depending on how long it takes to upload this fucker, but TLC this might get posted before TLC or after TLC, but it doesn't matter. I already previewed TLC, so you all know my feelings on it. So that's it for WWE for now. Mask Kane was obviously the major highlight, or the major headline of the week. And then TNA, just a couple of things going over their tapings, and a little bit of a reaction to Final Resolution. I didn't see Final Resolution. A lot of the reviews I read said that it was quote-unquote better than usual from TNA, which, hey, it's an improvement. Because you take it where you can get them. But the ending to the Iron Man match I think is really stupid because I feel like... WWE did it with Mark Henry and Big Show, but they blew the ring up, so at least they got something special out of it. But then they did it again in Survivor Series, where you're not really getting clean wins out of your main events, although Henry and Big Show's not the main event. They're IC title level. That's what the world title is. And that's what you get when you have two world titles. But, that's another discussion for another time. But, yeah, I just feel like, okay, you have this Iron Man match main event. Just give the people a finish. Like, let Robert Roode win. I mean, would it have killed you to do that ending that you did on Impact this week? And that's the thing. It's all right, you do the draw ending. You have to commit to it. And it has to go somewhere. Like, okay, Rude didn't beat AJ, so he's got to face AJ at some point in the distant future. Like, okay, he gets past Hardy. Maybe the next month AJ gets his rematch, or maybe at Lockdown AJ gets his rematch, and Storm gets built up to Slammiversary. I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas out there. You got to make it that draw mean something. Try to like extend whatever it is you were trying to do with that draw. And no, they just did it. They did the overtime on Impact for free, and the free viewers got their winner, and the paying customers, few as there are, as far as TNA pay-per-views go, they didn't get that. So, I mean, TNA's done dumber things, but that's just... come on, guys. Just give them a finish. It won't kill you. Oh, God. And, last man standing matches and Iron Man matches, there's always that tendency to want to do that. But, yeah, I mean, fuck. You could have done what I suggested. Do Storm and Angle at Genesis. Don't even do it at Final Resolution. And that leaves you with plenty of time on the pay-per-view to do an overtime for the Iron Man match, And, watching Impact this week, doing repetitive rematches back-to-back isn't advancing a storyline. It's just being repetitive. That's all you're doing. Kind of like, I felt like, Storm's already beat Angle, so who cares? The face has already overcome the obstacle, so why even continue that feud? You could have held off a month and then further built the match to Genesis so you'd have a big match for that show with a longer build. But now you're just you already did the match in Final Resolution, and now it's kind of lost its steam and you're just doing a rematch at the next pay-per-view. If you're going to do a rematch, do the rematch at Lockdown or something. Again, I'm just trying to think of ways to extend this shit and make it matter. I like the idea that they're finally focusing on more X Division guys. They've got like Tony Nese, who I have no idea who that guy is, and Zema Ion, who seemed good in the few times I did see him. And they're actually, because one of my criticisms of the X Division lately is that it's just been Aries, Kendrick, Sorensen, and Kid Cash. And it's just those same four guys over and over again. I'm like, okay, guys, you do realize you've got Kazarian, Daniels, Shelley. Where the hell is Alex Shelley? Are they just going to hold off on him until the Guns come back? I guess so. You've got all these X Division guys, Zema Ion, and you just keep featuring the same four guys every single week. So at least this series is like an attempt to, all right, we're going to try and establish a new contender for the title, which I like that. That's fine. There should be an X Division match on TV every week, and you should try and find ways to do different guys, because that's one of the benefits that WCW had with their super humongous roster. And they get criticized for having a roster that was too big, but it wasn't the same show every week. Different guys worked with different people, and when people got title shots, it meant something because the roster was so big. Title shots didn't come so easy. With the groundwork that laid out. And, again, I agree that the roster was too big, but I like having a big roster for the sake of diversity of shows, lack of repetition, and, look at Goldberg. He went through that long streak between his first match with Hugh Morris and his match with Hogan. How many rematches did he have? He might have wrestled Hugh Morris again. I don't remember. I think he wrestled Glacier twice, and those were his only rematches. Maybe. I could be wrong. I don't know for sure. But those are the only rematches I remember seeing it between his first match and the time he faced Hogan. And after he beat Hogan for the belt, he still had a whole mess of guys he hadn't worked with yet, like Sting, fucking Nash, DDP, Giant, load of guys that he hadn't worked with yet. So they could get a lot of mileage out of somebody like Goldberg, and maybe that's one of the reasons that TNA and WWE, whenever they've tried to do a Goldberg, they kind of run out of things to do with him right away because they can't extend that streak as long as possible. But I got completely sidetracked there. I like deep rosters. Deep rosters are good. And the last thing I want to comment on is the wild card tournament that they're doing with random tag team partners being arranged together for a tournament to get a title shot at Genesis. This would be an excellent idea if the plan was to create a new tag team that would be a permanent fixture in the tag team division. Let me put it this way. If this had been the way that Rude and Storm had got put together, because when they first formed Beer Money, they kind of just got put in the tag title picture right away, which normally spells doom, because once you get put in the title picture right away, you don't have much longevity. I think one of the things that hurt Edge and Christian as a long-term team, they really only had the one great year. Maybe a little bit in 99, but they didn't do a whole lot. They really only had the one great year in 2000, and a little bit into 2001. And one of the reasons I felt like they couldn't get enough out of them was because they won 7 tag titles in the span of a year. So once you've done that, I mean, who gives a shit if you win it again? So normally that spells doom, but Beer Money were able to rise above it. But if they had put Rude and Storm together in this fashion, it's like, all right, we're going to create a bunch of random teams, and by some coincidence, Rude and Storm got paired together, and they win this tournament, you've established a new team that I had faith in right from the start. When they put Storm and Rude together right away, I was like, you know what, that might actually work. So if TNA went into creating this tournament with that in mind, it would be an excellent idea. And the winning team that would be the permanent fixture would be established without working with any real teams. They're just beating a bunch of random teams that they're never going to face again. And then once they're established, then they can start working with the real teams and feuding with them. So they've got a lot. They can get more longevity out of that potential new duo, and they've established them without giving away any potential matches for the future. So that would be a good system to do it. Actually, good idea. The problem is that's not what they did at all. I don't think. I mean, if AJ Kazarian is a permanent team, which I doubt, if Joe Magnus, Samoa Joe and Magnus, which now that I say that out loud, Joe Magnus, that actually sounds like the name of a cop in like an old 70s show. Joe Magnus, cleaning up the streets one day at a time. Some shit like that. I don't know, that actually sounds cool now that I say it, but I don't see Joe and Magnus as a team that's going to be a long fixture. I think whoever wins this tournament is going to... they're going to get their title shot at Genesis, probably lose. They might get a rematch on TV, maybe at the next pay-per-view, and then you'll never see them again. That's how I feel. That's just the impression I'm getting just looking at these teams that they put together. I don't see... You know what? Maybe this is how they should have established Morgan and Crimson in the first place. Just... I don't know. I mean, it's too late. Hindsight is always 20/20. I don't know why. I just thought of the South Park character... fucking Captain Hindsight. But, hindsight's always 20/20, I understand that. But, just throwing ideas out there. So that wild card thing, it's just a random thing that they're doing. There's no... I don't think there's a long-term plan for it. And if there's no long-term plan for it, I just have to think, it's probably a waste of time then. They have no tag teams at this point. The tag team division's kind of fallen apart. Some of it through releases, some of it through injuries, some of it through, wanting to push Beer Money. That was, losing Beer Money was obviously damaging, but helpful to the main event picture. I will say that. So they need to rebuild that division, but I would scout the indie scene. Before you start trying to put random people together, I was like, look, scout the indies. You can find some great teams over there. Look at Ring of Honor. Look at the teams they got over there. They lost the Kings of Wrestling. I mean, am I correct? They're not there anymore? Because last I heard, Castagnoli had signed with... WWE, and he's got a developmental deal, and I've heard that Hero might be heading over there too, so that'll be interesting. So even without the Kings of Wrestling, they still have a lot of great teams, like Haas and Benjamin, the All Night Express. What was that one team I kind of liked? I forget, like Adam Riley and Cole, or I don't remember their names exactly, but there was this young team. The Bucks went over there. I saw their names on one of the shows. So, I mean, Ring of Honor probably has more real tag teams than both WWE and TNA combined. But whatever. I still maintain that even with the stupid things that they're doing on TV, that Robert Roode is like the best thing they have going, and they just need to keep riding out that train. I'm fearful that they're going to put the belt on Hardy, and I think that would be a stupid mistake. I think it's a stupid mistake putting him in the main event picture to begin with, just based on his history. I mean, just look at what he's done. This is the dude that left the WWE just so he could go do drugs, because he knew he was going to get that third strike sooner or later. Could have kept feuding with Punk. He could have he could have faced Punk at WrestleMania. They could have gotten mileage out of that, where it's like, all right, he lost at SummerSlam, lost his job, and then he comes back for revenge somehow, and got the rematch against Punk at Mania. Of course, Undertaker won the title. That threw that out of whack. But, so maybe no, but that probably wouldn't have happened at all. But they could have done something with Hardy, but no, he wanted to go off and do drugs. And then obviously we all know what happened in Victory Road this year. So, I mean, okay, if you're going to do this match, Rude needs to win. I think he's too good of an asset right now to your main event picture to squander. And I think the long-term build-up that they're getting out of Rude and Storm needs to be nurtured. If Rude's going to be facing Hardy, he needs to go over. If Rude eventually faces Sting, which I think they're going to do, Rude needs to go over in that case. Rude needs to be champion until he eventually faces James Storm, and that's what they need to do. That's what they need to build to, and they can't let that get sidetracked. Yeah, so there's that. TNA, WWE, a couple of interesting things going on, I guess. I mean, both products are not the worst they've ever been. I've certainly had a lot more to complain about regarding them. Anybody who's watched my videos, I've had a lot more to complain about them in the past. So at least I can say right now that they're not offensive, I guess is how I would sum them up at this current point in time. Not too offensive, I guess. So we'll leave it at that. So yeah, let's get into my best of and worst ofs of 2011. Okay, people, let's get the negative out of the way first. The worst ofs of 2011. 6 categories. I'm going to list a runner-up and a winner. Starting with the Divas, the Knockouts. Worst female performers of the year. The runner-up I'm going to give to Kelly Kelly, mainly because she's untalented. She can't even hit the ropes right. She's terrible on the mic. She's just awful in all aspects. All she has are her looks, and somehow that's justification for her being pushed as a great in-ring worker that can beat somebody like Natty Neidhart in under a minute. That's insulting. Her matches are boring and repetitive. They're terrible every week. The Divas matches are just awful almost every single week. And again, people justify her getting the push because she gets, she was on the cover of Maxim. She gets WWE publicity in that aspect, but yeah, she's hot. She sells her looks. Put her in a position where she can sell her looks. Don't try and push her as an athlete, because that's just ridiculous. And you open yourself up to mocking when you do something like that. Like I said, she can't even hit the ropes right. She just looks like a joke in there up against the more talented in-ring workers. Let the girls that are athletes that are trained to do this and are good at it, let them carry the wrestling side of things, and let Kelly Kelly and the girls like her be, valets or ring girls or something like that. Don't put her in a position where she has to wrestle, because she just looks awful doing it, so, why even do it? But she's not the number one worst. I'm going to give that to the Bellas, who are lousy performers in all aspects. All they've got is a gimmick. They aren't even the hottest girls in the company. Kelly Kelly, you can at least say is like, all right, she's like the hottest fucking girl in the WWE. The Bellas don't even have that. They're attractive, but all they've got is that they're twins, and that act got stale a long time ago. One of them won the title this year. I don't even know which one. They may have traded the title. I don't know. They might have both won the title. I don't even know. I don't even care to pay attention to what they're doing. I remember that segment they did with Karma. It was awful. Whenever they're in situations where they have to talk, it's terrible. And whenever they have to wrestle, it's the same shitty match over and over again. They spent most of the year working with Kelly Kelly. There was a 4-month period where it was even Kelly Kelly versus the Bellas in some combination for 4 months straight. And that was like the Divas match every week for 4 months. And it was awful and boring, and they're just awful, and I just don't see the appeal in them. Just because they're twins doesn't mean they should get a push. Next up, worst tag team of the year, and this was not a good year for the tag divisions in WWE or TNA, especially TNA. Last year that was the best part of the company with the Beer Money Machine Gun series, and then 2011 hit and it just fell off a fucking cliff. But WWE, they haven't focused on tag team wrestling for a long time, and it shows this year. I was tempted to give Mexican America the runner-up spot, because, it's shitty LAX. That's all they are, and they suck. But I had 2 teams from the WWE that I really hated that offered nothing to the tag team division, and they were both champions, too, so this will be a tie spot. It's like there's no runner-up and winner. These are tied for first. Whichever one you think is the worst, just take it. Take your pick and go with it. New Nexus, which was David Otunga and Michael McGillicuddy. How the hell that team ended up becoming tag team champions? In the '80s they would have been the jobber team. They would have lost to the Bushwhackers, for Christ's sake. Yeah, they were just terrible and just bland and boring. Otunga sucks monkey balls. And then you go on the other side, and it was the fucking core. Heath Slater and Justin Gabriel, 3-time tag team champions. No one gave a shit. And so you had these two teams that were treated like the top tag teams in the company, and no one gave a shit at all. All 4 performers are boring. Otunga's fucking shit. I mean, that guy offers nothing. And it's a really sad state for the tag team division when those are your top teams for a while. Air Boom, people said that Air Boom was going to lead to like a tag team renaissance or whatever. And it's like, I sat here thinking, I don't think they will, but they're better than this. So I guess you take whatever's better. Okay, worst feud or storyline of the year. And this one, I actually had a hard time coming up with one that was truly off, or at least coming up with a runner-up that was truly off. My winner, I knew what my winner was right away, but coming up with a runner-up was kind of hard. Then I remembered one that TNA did, Samoa Joe versus the Pope. Can anybody tell me what the fuck they were feuding over? And you had Okado or whatever the fuck his name was, running around dressed up like fucking Kato from the Green Hornet. And Joe was obsessed with stalking Pope and exposing him as a fraud or whatever. I still to this day have no idea what the hell they were feuding over. And there was a lot of bells and whistles. All of it sucked. And it was just a shitty and confusing feud that didn't do it for me at all. And it was 2 guys that I like, especially Pope, who I think is worth more than he's been given. I mean, there's a guy who they had at a pretty good level at one point to, get him ready for that main event spot, and then he just kind of fell off the fucking mountain too. But, I mean, this feud was just pointless and stupid. I don't even know what story they were trying to tell there. But my ultimate winner for worst storyline and feud of the year, without question, no doubt in my fucking mind, Jerry Lawler versus Michael Cole. Number one, I can't think of another character that detracts more from a wrestling product today than Michael Cole. Because the segments he's involved with are terrible, mostly. You saw that on the Slammy show this week, although I guess you could say that wasn't really his fault. I mean, JR forgot his lines. That was pretty bad. But, whenever he's on, he's, yelling at the top of his lungs. He's really annoying. And those are the non-wrestling segments that are dedicated only to him. But then he commentates. And you have to listen to him scream at the top of his lungs and argue with the other announcers in a really annoying way. And that's for the full 2 hours. And they've put so much time and energy into this character, and it is just painful. And then they turn around and they take 61-year-old Jerry Lawler. They make him a world title contender, pushing him over guys like Morrison. I mean, you wonder why Morrison didn't work out in the WWE. Well, look what they did to him. Look who they pushed over him. And it wasn't just Morrison either. There were a lot of guys that could have benefited from the TV time. A tag division would have been nice, A U.S. title match got left off of WrestleMania, and I'll get into that in a minute. We got that shitty match at WrestleMania. And then they turn around and they do another match in April. They do another match in May. And so, okay, please tell me this shit's fucking done. Nope, we're almost a year into it, and it's still going. Cole and Lawler and fucking JR are still bantering about shit and going on back and forth. I don't care. I don't care about a feud between announcers. Just let JR be back on the booth and let him call the fucking show. Okay? Tone this shit down. When Michael Cole came back and right after he lost to Lawler finally, and he apologized and they did the bit where it's like, okay, no more coal mine or whatever that shit was. Okay, it's done. It's fucking done, right? Nope, they just went right back to it, and he wrestles from time to time, and the whole thing is just terrible. I hated it, and the fact that it's still going is just insulting. And part of me thinks that they're going to have a rematch at WrestleMania 28, which, yippee! Worst pay-per-view of the year. Now, I'm going to be kind of short on this one because I didn't see many pay-per-views. My runner-up, I said this when I reviewed Survivor Series. I felt like Survivor Series was the weakest pay-per-view that I watched this year. I did not watch every single pay-per-view this year from TNA and WWE, but from the ones that I ordered and the ones that I watched, Survivor Series was the weakest one. So I'm giving that the runner-up spot. I'm giving the winning spot to a show I did not see. Well, I did watch its main event on YouTube, but there's no way in hell that the main event, the way this happened, there's no way in hell that this isn't the worst pay-per-view of the year. Victory fucking Road. I mean, what else can you say? Jeff Hardy came out, was fucked up. I think Sting shot on him and then just pinned him in 90 seconds just to get the hell out of there. It's one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen happen on a pay-per-view. Maybe the most embarrassing. Well, I don't know. I sat through the Concrete Crypt match, which was one of the worst fucking things ever. Yeah, it was really bad. So bad that people were saying, like, that's the death nail in TNA. Like, that company's going to be dead within a year. It was that bad of a moment. And I can't imagine, even though I didn't see Victory Road, I can't imagine it not being the worst pay-per-view of the year just because that happened in the main event. Okay, worst superstar of the year. My runner-up, I'm actually going to give it to Sin Cara. Can we just admit now that he's been a bust? I mean, he came in with all this hype, those great vignettes. I praised the WWE for how they were using him at first. And really, his problems don't really fall in the WWE. He came in. It's obvious that Mystico was having trouble adjusting to the WWE style. He botches a lot. Then he got the 30-day suspension. That didn't help things. And then he went out there at Survivor Series and got hurt because he did a spot wrong or something. And, he hasn't really lived up to the expectations that were placed before him. And again, that's not the WWE's fault. I mean, when you fuck up, you fuck up. And I guess the injury, that shit happens. But I just feel like, they invested time and energy into him and he just hasn't paid off. So we'll see what happens to him. But my number one pick for worst superstar of the year, not Jeff Hardy, his brother Matt. And when Matt is... when you're worse off than Jeff, we got fucking problems. But, when you're an ex-WWE guy and TNA doesn't push you right to the fucking moon, something ain't right. Hardy just never got on track in TNA. He came in out of shape. He looked skinnier as time went on, but he came in out of shape. And he just never did anything of substance. He was just kind of there, and he was jobbed out a lot, which, again, ex-WWE guy gets jobbed out. How often does that happen in TNA? And then, he gets the fucking DUIs, he goes to rehab, TNA let him go. Again, this is the same company that brought Scott Hall back and is bringing Jeff back now, and if they don't want to have anything to do with him, sucks for you, man. Matt Hardy's a guy that a few years ago I thought, okay, he doesn't have Jeff's charisma, but he's got more sense than Jeff. And I think that's if Jeff had Matt's sense, he'd be world champion. If Matt had had Jeff's charisma, he'd be world champion. Of course, Jeff ended up becoming world champion anyway. Again, mistake. But here we are now in 2011, almost in 2012, and it's like, wow, I think Jeff's the better adjusted of the two, and that's kind of sad. Here's wishing Matt Hardy the best. 2011 wasn't very kind to you. Okay, and finally, for the worst match of the year. And again, like tag teams, this was one that I had two ideas in my mind, and I've already sort of touched on them in the other categories, so you can probably figure out what my picks are going to be. But I couldn't really decide which one I wanted to be number one. So there's not a runner-up and there's not an ultimate winner. It's just a tie for first. Both of these matches were shit. I kept going back and forth on which one I was going to put first. So I just decided to give them a tie. Sting versus Jeff Hardy at Victory Road for the world title. Again, it was a black eye on TNA, one that I don't think they fully recovered from. It was just that big of an embarrassment on pay-per-view to have that happen. They would have been better off just having, if that had just been a boring, shitty match, nobody would have said anything. But the fact that Hardy showed up fucked up, and Sting, I think, called an audible in there, and just it ended the way it did. It was really, really bad to have that happen on a pay-per-view main event, and really embarrassing, not just to TNA, but to the business as a whole, to have something like that happen. And I don't think Hardy should be allowed to come back after something like that. I'm sorry. But, that was bad. But the other one happened about a month later? WrestleMania 27, Jerry Lawler versus Michael Cole, a match between a 60-year-old and a man who's never been trained to wrestle before, and they get like fucking half an hour. I think if I combine the amount of time they got for entrances, video packages, ring time, and then all the post-match bullshit that they did, it probably got as much time as the main event, maybe more. I don't know. Fuck. It was boring. It was terrible. And I remember when Goldberg and Lesnar happened at 20. I said that I will never see another WrestleMania match as bad as that one ever again. The worst, I would probably say the worst Mania match ever is still Taker and Bossman at 15. But Goldberg and Lesnar was way closer than I thought I'd ever see again. And I was like, okay, there's never going to be a big match as bad as that one again. The last few Manias have given it some pretty close contenders. I mean, Triple H and Randy Orton, that sucked. Brett and Vince last year, piece of shit. But this match, and it made a lot of the same mistakes as Brett and Vince made, where it just dragged on and on and on, and it just needed to be like a 2-minute thing. But the fact that they put so much storyline build into this, a storyline that I hated, and then we got that shitty payoff. Again, we didn't even get a real finish. We got that bullshit computer finish where the computer picked the winner, which that was shitty. There was no payoff to who the computer GM was, which I'm glad you made your show suck for a year just to give us no payoff. It was just, I was just flabbergasted while watching. It's like, is this thing gonna fucking end or what? Jesus Christ. And then after the match was over, I was like, thank God. And then they had to have a Spinneroonie contest, and then they had to do shenanigans with Steve Austin, then they had to do shenanigans with the Raw GM. It was fucking terrible, and it would not fucking end. I mean, that was just absolutely awful. If Sting and Hardy was shitty for being too short, this one was shitty for being too long. So yeah, those were two absolute shitty matches that I can't believe happened on pay-per-view. Much like in WrestleMania's case, it was the biggest pay-per-view of the year. I can't believe that happened. I mean, at least the sumo match at 21 was short, But yeah, and then the Hardy Sting thing was so big of an embarrassment. I really didn't know which one was worse. So both of those matches, you get the shit award here. Those were fucking terrible. Okay, it's time to turn those frowns upside down, strike it, reverse it. We're going to the complete opposite, the best ofs of 2011. And I found that 2011, even though they weren't able to sustain the momentum from a lot of these things, I did have a lot of positive individual moments to talk about. So, I found I didn't have too much trouble finding good things about 2011, even if those things didn't live up to their full potential. But let's get started. First category, Best Female Performer of the Year. Now, like I said, women's wrestling just isn't that good right now for various reasons. A lot of it has to do with creative. A lot of it has to do with the talent that's pushed. Right now, if I had to pick the best female performers in wrestling, Karma doesn't get nominated, or she didn't get any consideration because she just wasn't around long to make much of an impact. And that's because she's pregnant, and that's fine. And congratulations to her. I don't begrudge her or anything for that. That's just the way the dice rolled. But if I had to assign a best of for female performers, it's a tie, and it's a WWE girl and a TNA girl. For TNA, it's Mickie James. I think that she just generally performs well, whatever situation she's in. I felt like, I talked about it last year, the Knockouts division had pretty much been reduced to the Barbie division, where it was pretty much just the hot blondes fighting each other. It was the beautiful people versus the beautiful people. And when she came on, she added a little bit more diversity, and then her performances have always been good. And then slowly things got a little better to the point that the Knockouts right now are a more diverse roster. Generally she just performs well, and I think she deserves credit for that. For the WWE, I'm going to give it to Beth Phoenix. Again, she's not always allowed to be that good of a performer, but her shit's generally better than a lot of the other girls. Natty, I think, could put on, Natalia, I keep calling her Natty, but I think she could be very good if allowed to be, but she's not. She, jobs to Kelly in a minute. And Beth, she does the best she can with the shitty workers that she has to deal with. Like that match she had with Eve at Survivor Series. Match sucked, but they pulled out that finish, which, at least with Beth, she tends to leave you with something a little bit better than you would probably expect. So, and she's the champion right now. She should be, even though it seems like the two, the heels never get over on Kelly for whatever reason. That bit they did at the Slammies this week. What the hell was that? What was the point of that? But anyway, those are the two most impressive girls in wrestling right now, I think. Best Tag Team of the Year. Again, tag team wrestling has not been that great this year in 2011, so I didn't have a whole lot to work with. A lot of people thought that Air Boom, when they won the titles, that it was going to be like a renaissance for tag team wrestling in the WWE. Didn't pan out that way for various reasons. Although I didn't have much faith in them in the first place because, how's that any different from the stuff they usually do? They just took two singles wrestlers that they didn't have a plan for, and they just threw them together in a random team and had them win the titles, almost out of nowhere. How's that different from what they've been doing the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years or so? But by default, they're the best team that the WWE's offered this year. So I'll give them the runner-up spot, again, just by default, because there's not a whole lot to work with. And Kofi and Evan, they're high-flying guys, and they just generally, at least they make their matches a little better than what Core and Nexus were doing. And even with Born Suspension, they're the runner-up to best tag team of the year. That's pretty sad. But number one tag team of the year, again, they're pretty much getting it by default. Beer Money. I just think Rude and Storm, and they didn't even have much to work with this year. I mean, one pay-per-view they were working with Matt Hardy and Chris Harris. They didn't have a whole lot to work with this year, but they're just generally a good team. And I think they were the best team in the business this year, again, pretty much by default. If I were going to incorporate Ring of Honor into this, the Kings of Wrestling and World's Greatest Tag Team would probably get more consideration, but I just tend to focus more on WWE and TNA. TNA, they lost the guns for about the entire year. Inc., Mexican America, they suck. British Invasion, where the hell are they? WWE, the Usos, I forgot they had a job. They've got this new team with Epico and Primo, who, again, I didn't know Primo still had a job. There just wasn't a whole lot to work with as far as tag teams when the two major companies go, and I think Beer Money is just the best team out of them, even if though they didn't have much to do, and ultimately they split by the end of the year to go work the main event, which is good for them, because Beer Money's been one of my favorite things about TNA for a few years now, and now they're the main event, and they're my favorite thing about the company right now. Okay, best feud or storyline of the year. Runner-up, I'm going to give it to Rock and John Cena. I think The Rock's presence adds a spark whenever he's there, and I like the fact that they've decided to try and build up this match to WrestleMania 28 for a year. I like that. And I understand that's done because of Rock's schedule, but at least announcing the match ahead of time is really kind of allows for a longer time to build anticipation for the match. And whenever Rock shows up, he's great. He was the reason I ordered Survivor Series. I thought he was great at that pay-per-view. And he adds a lot to television whenever he's there. It's about as good as you're going to get out of John Cena as far as the storyline goes. And, the fact that it's a star from the Attitude Era that's still really good, going up against somebody that's kind of like the Antichrist of professional wrestling from my mind and from the mind of a lot of other, smarks. I think it's actually a good pairing, and it works in that aspect. And a lot of their interactions have been very good. So, yeah, they get the runner-up. But I got to give number one, favorite storyline. I guess you could say, the feud was versus Cena, but I like to think of it as more of like a grand storyline, and that's CM Punk's rise to the top. The Summer of Punk, I guess we'll call it. When he cut that promo on Raw, and then he made his run to Money in the Bank, won the title the way he did, that created such excitement, a sense of realism, unpredictability, so many good things for the company, and it was the best piece of wrestling television this year, that ongoing storyline they had. And the thing is, they fucked it up. They didn't even get the full potential out of it. I commented before, the whole thing amounted to Kevin Nash in a Triple H feud and Johnny Ace being the bad guy, and that's all it really amounted to in the grand scheme of things. When they, a lot of us had pictured these grand things that they could have done with Punk just being off TV. They didn't get enough out of Punk being off TV. It was only gone a week. But even with the fuck up, that 4 or 5 week period there was absolutely excellent. Some of the best wrestling television I've seen in a dog's age. It was fantastic stuff, and it led to me being excited for one of their pay-per-views, and one of the best pay-per-view endings I've seen in a long, long time. It was excellent. You had a strong, fresh new character with CM Punk, and it was just excellent all around, and I just wish it had lived up to whatever potential it had. Next up is Best Pay-Per-View of the Year. Now, I think I said it last week when I previewed the 2 December pay-per-views. Since I've been doing videos here on YouTube, the best month for pay-per-views as far as like the build-up and my excitement and the actual payoff, since I've been doing them, was July of this year. That would be Destination X for TNA, and obviously Money in the Bank for WWE. I'm going to give the runner-up spot to Destination X. It wasn't an outstanding show. I've definitely seen better. And I hate that TNA does almost all their pay-per-views out of the Impact Zone. But for what it was, it had a little bit of nostalgia to it, and it was just a fun show all around to have so many X Division guys and to do so many great things. The 4-way was very good. It was cool to see Joe back in the X Division and AJ and Daniels, even though they had the same goddamn match over again. It was still good for what it was. It was just an all-around good, solid pay-per-view that was a little different from the norm of what TNA usually does. So it was an enjoyable experience overall. Now, the winner, obviously, is going to be Money in the Bank. And I'll be honest, here we are, it's December. That pay-per-view happened in July. I don't remember a lot of what happened on that show. I remember Daniel Bryan winning the title. Or not winning the title. He won the Money in the Bank ladder match. And Del Rio won the other one. The ladder matches themselves were, solid, not among the better Money in the Bank ladder matches. Honest to God, there must have been a Divas match on there somewhere. Don't remember. I think, did Mark Henry and Big Show have a match? I don't know. Orton and Christian definitely wrestled each other because it was the summer, and if there was a pay-per-view, Orton and Christian were having a match. So, yeah, I'm sure that happened. But the main event and the storyline build for the main event, Cena versus CM Punk for the WWE title in Punk's hometown of Chicago. That hyped-up crowd, the atmosphere was great, the build-up was great, and the payoff was phenomenal. And like I said earlier, the ending to that pay-per-view was one of the best executed things I've seen in a long time. And it was so exciting, it was unpredictable. I mean, it was one of those situations where it was like, holy fuck, what's going to happen next? I have no idea, but I'm going to tune in to find out. And Money in the Bank really delivered in that aspect. It was one of the most exciting pay-per-view endings, main events, whatever, that I've seen in a long time. So obvious nod for pay-per-view of the year is going to be Money in the Bank. Now, to be fair, like I said before, I didn't see many pay-per-views this year. I think for TNA, I only saw Lockdown, Destination X, and Bound for Glory. And for WWE, I only saw Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, Money in the Bank, obviously, and Survivor Series. I saw the WrestleMania weekend of Ring of Honor shows, and I saw the Dragon Gate pay-per-view. So that's all I saw as far as pay-per-views go. So if there's a really great show here that I missed, I probably didn't see it. I sure as hell wasn't going to give it to WrestleMania, that's for sure. Yeah, those were the standouts to me in the pay-per-views that I watched. Okay, next up, best match of the year. Now, again, like I said, a lot of pay-per-views I didn't see this year, so if there's a really great match that I'm leaving off, or that I'm not talking about, keep in mind, I probably didn't see it. So I heard that Christian and Del Rio was really good at Extreme Rules. For example, I never saw it, because I didn't see Extreme Rules. So before anybody bashes me for leaving something off, and this is just strictly my opinions here, there's no official voting system went into this. It's rigged, because it's all my opinions. So yeah, so just letting you know right now. Best matches of the year. And this was a category that was actually kind of hard to find a runner-up because I didn't see any matches that really stood out except for one, and that's going to be the winner. But for a runner-up, I just kind of went for Undertaker and Triple H at WrestleMania. I think I said it in my WrestleMania review. I didn't think it was an awesome match. I didn't think it was one of the best matches I'd ever seen, like a lot of people were saying. I thought it was a very good match. It was the best part of that pay-per-view, and it was fun for what it was. I don't think it's going to go down as one of my all-time favorites, though. But it was a very good match. And I'll say this, it was better than the WrestleMania 17 match. And we're probably going to get it again at WrestleMania 28, so enjoy. So yeah, that's the runner-up. But the winner, I talked about the storyline. I talked about the pay-per-view. Is there any other winner besides John Cena and CM Punk at Money in the Bank? Is there? Can anybody name me another one that's even arguable to be the match of the year? I don't know. It was just, again, and a lot of it had to do with the atmosphere, the crowd reaction, the strong build-up. I mean, that was one of those cases where they really only had like a month's build, but they did a lot with that time to make me excited to see that match. And I just felt like I can't miss this match. This is just too good to miss. And it delivered. It was great. It was exciting. The crowd definitely added a lot. And Punk being the big hero really made it work. And the ending put it over the top. To have that shocking ending. And I had a suspicion that it might happen, because I think I said we didn't know whether or not Punk was going to leave, and I said going in, if Punk's leaving, he'll just lose and that'll be it, and whatever, Cena wins. But if he's not leaving and he wins the title, holy fuck, that's going to be a shitstorm. And I want to see what happens. Just in case Punk's not leaving and he wins the title, I want to see what happens. And it delivered in all aspects, definitely. I'm not a star ratings guy, but, 5 stars, 10 out of 10, A fucking plus, whatever you want to give it. That's my match of the year. No question, no doubt in my mind. Okay, and my final Best of award is going to be Best Superstar of the Year. And I'm not going to do any random fucking Slammy Awards, because some of the fucking Slammy Awards they came up with were so fucking random. Trending Superstar of the Year. Game Changer of the Year. John Cena, yeah, because that dude, he's a game changer. He's not at all like the standard bearer for the same old shit over and over again, right? What were some other ones? Oh, Punk got the Pipe Bomb of the Year award. But there were no nominees. It was just like a highlight reel of random clips. Some of them were like bloopers. As I was like, so wait, Punk got the I Screwed Up award? What? I'm Funny award? What? I don't know what this is supposed to be. But, whatever. Although I will say this. I forgot to talk about this on my Raw review. Fuck Mass Kane. My biggest markout moment was when they did that music video and they used the fucking touch. Okay, that was my fucking markout moment of the show. I saw that and I was like, you know what? Transformers fans around the nation are creaming their fucking pants right now that the touch made it on the WWE TV. And credit to the WWE. Michael Bay couldn't fucking give me the song, but they sure did. So, yeah, that was my big markout moment for wrestling this week. It wasn't Kane. But, yeah, getting back to the award. Best Superstar of the Year. Again, I didn't have a whole lot of time to really think about this one. I just had 2 answers in my mind. One really obvious, number 1. And number 2, the runner-up, I'm going to give it to Bobby Roode. I think TNA's really invested in him. And even with the fuck-up at Bound for Glory, which I talked about, and I got a lot of views for... a lot more views than normal for me. I think I broke 1,000 on that one, which isn't normal for me at all. Bitching about how they fucked up with Bobby Roode. Even after that fuck-up, they managed to make it work, and now he's like the best heel character in wrestling right now. He's just great, and I'm really liking what they're doing with him, even with the stupid shit that that their booking usually shelves out. I thought establishing him through the Bound for Glory series was a really good idea. I love the Bound for Glory series. I put that over. His rise to Bound for Glory was very good. They fucked up at Bound for Glory. Then they corrected the mistake. And he's just been a great presence on television ever since. I really like what they're doing with Bobby Roode, and I think they need to run with him over what other options are out there right now. And he's a fresh face, too. It's refreshing to see him in the main event over the same old classic guys like Anderson, Sting, Kurt Angle, who else? Fucking Jeff Hardy, or whatever. Rob Van Dam. He's even Abyss, or even like the TNA originals that did get pushed. Abyss, Samoa Joe, AJ. It's refreshing to see him in the mix, and him as the title, and him doing so well at it. So yeah, Bobby Roode's my number 2. He's the runner-up. But the number 1, obvious answer. I talked about the match. I talked about the pay-per-view. I talked about the storyline. It's CM Punk. WWE gave him Superstar of the Year. And I'm going to throw this out to you. I found this posted on weforums.com. And I'm looking. Who posted this? This came from Business Insider's website, talking about the top 20 athletes of the year. And so Business Insider, these are people that have nothing to do with wrestling. These are outsiders looking in, listing the top 20 sports stars of the year. Not based on like win-loss records or anything like that, but based on their relevance to their respective sports. They ranked, again, non-wrestling people talking about sports. They ranked CM Punk at 16 out of 20. And needless to say, he was the only professional wrestler on the list. Here's what they had to say about CM Punk. There was a brief stretch in the summer where pro wrestling was relevant. And that is all because of Punk. His feud with the WWE felt so real that he put the entire sport back in the spotlight. That right there, the fact that you had outsiders excited and wanting to get the scoop on what was going on within the WWE over what this guy was doing, more so than The Rock even. The Rock generates a spark whenever he's there, and that's great, but he's really just there. And I don't want to say he's just a nostalgia guy, but that's, Rock's best years in wrestling are behind him. Even though he's still very good, his best years are behind him. Punk came, they gave him this hot storyline that was refreshing. It was new. It was exciting, and it got the notice of people like Business Insider to the point that he's on a list. CM Punk is the only professional wrestler on the same list as guys. The top 3 were LeBron James, Tim Tebow, and Aaron Rodgers. That's pretty remarkable. And like I said, I've already praised it. The television regarding that storyline was fantastic. And the only bad part was that they didn't have it live up to its full potential. CM Punk now, he's basically just another babyface. He's doing what all of the other babyfaces do. He makes fun of Michael Cole. He's opposed to Johnny Ace, which all the babyfaces are opposed to Johnny Ace. Triple H is opposed to Johnny Ace, the other authority figure. The other authority figures don't like him. So it's like, that doesn't make Punk a rebel. That just makes him just another face that goes along with what the fans say. And what they had there was a guy that could have changed the entire personality of the company. And again, I was suggesting all these things they could have done with Punk. With him not being there, I mean, they could have gotten a lot more out of him leaving the company and keeping him off TV for a while. But, right now he's just another babyface. He's the champion. I think he's the best option. But they really didn't milk that initial rise from the summer for what they could have. And I don't think that was WWE's deliberate attempt to fuck him over. I just think that's WWE's incompetent writing coming into play. But what they did over the summer was so great, I can't ignore it. CM Punk is the superstar of the year just based on what they were able to do over the summer alone. Nobody else has that. I don't even think it's debatable that CM Punk is Superstar of the Year. Maybe, again, the only one you could possibly feed to me that's arguable is The Rock. And he's not there. He only wrestled 1 match. So, no. It's CM Punk. And the fact that you have, a Business Insider and outside, ESPN was covering it. TMZ was covering it. I mean, it was that right there. He's the Superstar of the Year, just based on that alone. That 1 month, 2 month period by itself. CM Punk, this rebel, angry character, generated interest for professional wrestling in a way that nobody else was doing at the time. And it's just a shame that they didn't ride it to the moon and do all they could have with it, but it is what it is. Okay, I'm really going to try and keep this part of the video short because I just edited through an hour and a half worth of footage, just editing, the other portions of the video together. So this is going to be super long, so I'm going to try and keep this short. But like I said, this is going to be my last video of 2011, so this is the last time you'll see me. So before I go, just wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hope everybody has a Happy New Year. I hope 2011 was kind to a lot of you, and I hope you all have a good 2012. 2011 was not very good for me, to be perfectly honest. So I'm just hoping for a better 2012, and I'll see you all next year. And one thing that I'm going to tack on to the end of this video, just for the sake of doing a little bit of a discussion, I do love this time of the year. I do love Christmas, and I really get into my Christmas specials and the movies that I love to watch at Christmas time. So at the tail end of the video, I'm going to tack on my 20 favorite Christmas specials and movies that I like to watch every year. And, just to get into the spirit of things, post your favorites, or, react to my list. Tell me if you think my list sucks or whatever. I don't think anybody will think my list will suck, but, just tell me what you think. Get into the whole Christmas discussion thing, because I'm just curious to see what other people say. But, again, thank you to everybody for watching my videos throughout 2011, and I hope to see you all next year with... Hopefully I can come up with some more ideas for videos, but we'll see. But yeah, I'll see you all next year. Have a safe, wonderful holiday period. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and later.